Jaden Rashada, yesterday morning, he is suing Billy Napier, the current head coach of the Florida Gators, a high-level booster at Florida, and a former recruiting staffer at Florida. This made massive waves yesterday for good reason. One, it's a very, very public NIL dispute situation going on, one of the first that we've had, definitely the first of this magnitude. Also, the details of the whole situation are a little bit interesting because you got a quarterback who has now ended up at the rival school in Georgia suing the rival in Florida and their head coach. So, yeah, that's going to add a little bit more drama to this whole thing. But I think yesterday a lot of the discussion was around Jaden Rashada and around what it means for his camp and about what it means for him and what allegedly happened to him. And I think we also have to acknowledge that, but look to the other side of that whole thing. Where does this leave Florida? Where does this leave Billy Napier? What does it mean for them going forward? We'll talk about it right now. If you're watching live right now, we appreciate you. Quick plug. Make sure you're subscribed. Okay, subscribe button under the picture. If you're watching as a one-off cut, we're glad to have y'all here. It's college football, nothing but college football every single day of the year. Yes, when they're playing games. When they're not playing games, we're talking ball. Also on podcast, Spotify, Apple, at JD Pickell. Subscribe there, or Spotify, Apple, the hard counts with JD Pickell. Social plug there as well, at JD Pickell if you want to follow me there. We appreciate that. Bottom line, just get tuned into everything. Podcast, socials, YouTube. Helps us help you. Thank you for that. A big question everyone was asking when this news broke yesterday was, okay, whoa, hey, it's pretty serious. This is pretty serious stuff we're talking about here. Jaden Rashada is alleging that Billy Napier, high-level booster, former recruiting staffer, all did everything they could to get his commitment, which they eventually got when he flipped from Miami to Florida. And then they're saying, well, they did everything in their power to also make sure they didn't have to pay him that NIL money that they had agreed upon. The original contract was $13.85 million. So, yeah, from Jaden Rashada, I'm going to have an issue if I don't get that money. I understand the contract was terminated, all that stuff. I'd have a problem, too, if you are going to pay me darn near $14 million and I don't get it. So I understand that whole part of it. But going back to what I was saying, the question that people were asking as soon as this broke of, Billy Napier, he's cooked. He's cooked, right? This is Florida's out. This is their chance to fire him. And Nick De La Torre from Gators Online, I thought made a really good point in all of this from a legal perspective. Is Billy Napier going to lose his job before the season? No. From a legal perspective, as Nick says, there's no proof that the $1 million that was allegedly promised to Jaden Rashada to sign on signing day was a reality. Like, there's no text there to support this claim as of right now, time of us being live. There's also no voice recording that we have right now, but even if there was, Florida and California where the Rashadas are, and Florida where Billy Napier is, it's a two-party consent state, which essentially just means both parties, Napier and the Rashadas, need to know and agree to that whole voice recording situation. The way that Nick describes it, it's a rabbit hole, so I don't think that's necessarily going to happen. I don't think we're going to get super condemning evidence that this whole situation played out the way that the Rashadas are alleging. Now, we might, or maybe that evidence may come to light, but we'll never hear of it. The bottom line, I don't think legally there's enough there as of right now for Florida to fire Billy Napier. The other thing is I don't think they should, for a couple of reasons. The first is, right now, with what I just said, the actual concrete, hard and fast proof that these things happened is lacking. Pete Nako said it yesterday. Right now, it's a lot of he said versus he said. And he said versus he said doesn't cause you to lose your job. I don't think it causes you to lose your job for cause. That's the first part. The other thing is the way that I felt when this whole thing broke was a little bit conflicting, because you read those reports and you're like, man, if that's true, it's messed up. Messing with a kid's life. The other part is I don't know that I can buy in 100% to the things that are being said just yet. Again, if there's proof, and we'll unpack it more. So I want to speak carefully here. But with what we have right now, I don't think this disqualifies Billy Napier as a coach. Like, yes, you're still responsible. You're still the CEO of your whole organization. And if those things did happen, if those things are proven to be true, different conversation. But right now, the way that I'm looking at this thing, NIL was a brand new thing for the most part when Jaden Rashada was in high school and people were still trying to figure it out. The way that it looks and feels to me is that NIL with Jaden Rashada was figured out on the fly. And when things are thrown together on the fly, man, usually there's more margin for things to go wrong. There's more potential for us to have some hiccups and some issues. And so I'm not saying that there wasn't, selfish motives on either side of this thing to try and do what's in the best interest of both Jaden Rashada's camp and of Florida's camp. But I do think it's tough for me to say, okay, we're going to fire a guy because of a brand new thing, which is NIL in the college landscape, and that's reason for us to just terminate him. I don't see that. I think when you look at what you hired Billy Napier to do, it was to win football games. Now, has that happened to the degree you'd like it to at Florida just yet? No. But I do think that if you're looking at him just as a football coach, this isn't like a football coach job description 10 years ago. This is a brand new thing added to you want to be a football coach at the D1 level, at the SEC level. This is brand new. Guys are figuring this out. The real thing that I think we should look at here is the optics for Florida. That's the tough part for me, the optics for Florida. Because if I'm a recruit and I'm looking at the Gators and I got 4 or 5 stars next to my name, how often do you think questions about the Rashada situation are going to be asked now going forward? My guess is darn near 100% of the time. My guess is every single kid that has some potential to go play at the University of Florida is going to say, well, hey, coach, I love Florida. I'm excited about this opportunity. I appreciate the offer. I like the NIL package we're talking about here, but also Jaden Rashada probably liked the NIL package as well. How do I know this isn't going to happen to me? And that's a tough discussion to have. Like, at best, you're having to reassure. At worst, you're probably losing some kids. Now, I don't know exactly how these different recruits are going to view this going forward. Again, that former staffer is no longer there. Have to believe that if you're Florida, you are even more on your P's and Q's in the NIL world because of a situation like this arising. But I'm just saying, I don't think this helps the optics at the very least if you're Florida. Now, when we look at what this means going forward in 2024, I've already established I don't think this is a situation that causes Billy Napier to lose his job before the season. It just adds more pressure to an already pressure-packed season for Billy Napier and the Gators. The schedule is the Hunger Games. We've said that many times. But you know what I think would really do a lot for this situation and do a lot for Billy Napier? Winning. Winning. We talk about it a lot on this show. The win-loss goggles are a very, very real thing. If Billy Napier and Florida go out there and win 9 games in 2024, that's asking a lot with this schedule. Let's just say they go ahead and they win big. They blow that 5.5 preseason win total out of the water. You know what they're saying about this situation? Well, NIL was new. And Billy Napier clearly has his organization in a good spot. That Jaden Rashada thing must have been an outlier. He clearly knows what he's doing as the head coach for Florida. Like, they just won 9 ball games. They won 8 ball games. Yeah, we're not too worried about that whole situation right now. It was an outlier. It was a one-off. There's a lot of built-in goodwill if you start winning football games. This thing becomes much less of a big deal for the people that are making the calls when it comes to the head coaching position and who's that head coach at Florida going forward. Now, if you lose, it gives some more life to the Steve Spurrier comments that he made earlier in this year, saying, we love Billy Napier in the way that he is a family man. He works hard, but I just wish things were a little bit more tidy. People start to give you less benefit of the doubt around the Jaden Rashada situation. It's like, hey, they lost football games, and the whole Jaden Rashada thing blew up in our face over the offseason when we're trying to get ready to go win ball games. Like, is this really a situation we want to persist long-term? I think the real fear here is what happens if you go 6-6 or 7-5, which I've said multiple times, 7-5, man, with that schedule, Florida might be like a top 30 team in the country if they go 7-5 with that schedule. It's ridiculous. But if you're 7-5 or 6-6, at that point, you could be looking at a very real 50-50 split when it comes to the opinion around keeping Billy Napier for another season. And my concern is this Jaden Rashada allegations, regardless of what ends up coming or not coming from it, could swing that thing 1% in the wrong direction for Billy Napier. So I don't know how this is going to be perceived. A lot of this is still ongoing. Again, if we get more evidence, if we get more information, we will have a new opinion. That's just how this whole thing works. We're operating with the opinion and assumptions we have right now. However, to recap it, Billy Napier, don't think he's getting fired. That's first off. Second, don't think he should get fired. NIL is wacky. NIL is new at that point in time. It's become a lot more structured since then, I believe. I think we're headed towards a much more structured system in the future. It's headed in the right direction. Dealing with NIL as an SEC head coach, brand new to the job description. So if it ends up being true, we'll talk about, or if those allegations end up being true, we get concrete proof of that, we'll talk about it another way. But I don't see a way where you fire Billy Napier before the season, and if you win, the win-loss goggles come out and the vibes change very, very quickly if you're a Florida Gator fan or in that Florida Gator camp. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.